Hello, welcome to another video. Today we're going to use React for the first time. So a tutorial for beginners in React, and we're going to use it to create this tic-tac-toe game. It'll tell us who goes next and who the winner is at the end. Okay, so first things first, we bring up PowerShell, and just in the directory that we want to be in, we're going to create a React app. So we can do this. You need Node installed and you need npm installed, which is Node Package Manager. Okay, once you've got those installed, you should be able to do npm install npx. I've already got it installed, so it should come back tell me that. We just give it a second. Okay, once you've got npx, just do npx create React app, and we're going to call it tic-tac-toe, and it should install everything needed and create some files for us to get started if we just leave that for a minute. Okay, so a few moments later and it's created all the files for us. It comes up with this wee message, happy hacking. So let's go into that tic-tac-toe directory and then open it up in VS Code, and we can see what it's created for us. Just give it 1 second. And here we go. So it's got Node modules, which has been installed. Well, all these files have been written when we've just run that command previously. So the files which we are interested in are in this src. This is what is used. So we want to delete everything that's here and make a couple of files of our own. Did that delete? Okay, so the first file we want to make is an index.css and then an index.js as well. So while that's just doing its thing, okay, there we go, it's removed them now. So in source we want an index.css and an index.js. So a CSS file and a JavaScript file. So we'll just start with the CSS file first, and you can just copy what I'm putting in here if you don't know much CSS, but we're just going to put all the styling in for the project. So first thing first, body, we want 14 pixel font with Century Gothic, Futura, sans serif, and then margin, we'll give it 20 pixels. Okay, and then ordered list and unordered list, just give that a wee bit of padding left. Let's say 30 pixels. Now for board row, we're going to use the pseudo selector after. You'll see what all this is when we begin to create the elements in React, but we'll just put this CSS in first. So content, empty, and display table. And then dot status, this will say which player's playing next, or if someone's won, and we want the margin bottom to be 10 pixels. And then square, we'll give that background of FFF, border 1 pixel, solid and 999, so darker, float left, font size 24 pixels, font weight bold, line height 34 pixels, and the height as well 34 pixels, and then margin right and margin left we'll give -1 pixel, padding 0, text align center, and width 34 pixels. Okay, so that's everything for the squares on the tic-tac-toe box. And then when the square is in focus, we want, oops, that messed up, square, when the square is in focus, sorry, we want the outline to be none. Okay, next thing, and then class of game, display flex, flex direction, row, and the final thing in our CSS is going to be game info, and that's going to have margin left of 20 pixels. Okay, we'll save that and then move on to our JavaScript file. Okay, so this is where we're going to use React. So we want, first of all, to import a few things at the top of the file. So we want to import React from React, and these packages are all installed when we start up an app. Import React DOM from React DOM, and then finally we'll import the CSS file we've just created. So oops, index.css. Okay, and then we'll move on to creating the components now. So first thing, we want to have these squares, so we create them as classes, inheriting from a React class for components, and then we have a render function, and this is what is basically returned on the React DOM. So it's a wee bit like a HTML file, but we're going to return a button, sorry, not a bus, with a class name of square, and oops, we'll just put a little comment in there at the moment to say to do. So we're going to come back and put some things in here as we go along, but at the moment we're just going to return a button for the square, and that square will use our CSS styles for square, which we have here. Okay, next thing is the board. So class board, again it's just going to extend react.component, if I can spell extends, and all we're going to do there is render square. We'll use I at the moment, I'll explain that later, and then that function is just going to return a square. So now that we've set up square, we can call it with this tag as well, like our own HTML component. Okay. So within this class board, it's going to have render. Oops, that should be outside there. And so the render square is just a function we've put inside board. Now render is what's actually put onto the page. So I'll show you why we've created that render square in a second. So we're going to start off with just a div, and then some divs inside this. So a div, oops, with the class name status, and that's going to contain our status. Below that, we're going to have a div with the class name of board row, and inside there we're going to render some squares. So this dot render square, the function we wrote before, and we can say 0 to start with, and then we're going to do another couple. So we'll just pass in 1 and 2. That's one row. We want 3 rows to make a 3x3 grid. So we just copy that down a couple of times using Shift Alt and the down key, and then edit the numbers to be 3, 4, 5. Oops, and 6, 7, 8. This render should be wrapped around here. Like that. I'm just going to tab those in so it's a bit more readable. Tab these in and get rid of that. Is that everything? Why is it kicking up of us? Oops, render should be like this actually. There we go. And inside render, sorry, we need to have return. So that should be there. And then we're just returning this whole sort of HTML style object. Okay, the other thing we want inside render is we use status, so we need to declare that as a constant. And at the moment we're just going to have it next player X. So we'll update this as we go along to have more things. Right, the final thing we need, or not quite final, but next thing we need is class of game, and again we're just going to extend React component, and we'll need a render method which will return a div with the class name of game, and inside that a div with the class name of game board, and then inside there we can put the board which we've just created. Okay, and underneath that, so inside game but same level as game board, we're going to have a div with the class name of game info. Oops. Then that is where we're going to have an ordered list with to do. Okay, and we'll come back to that later. I think that's everything. Why is it thrown up in there? Oh, I forgot my curly bracket. Okay, final thing now. In order to get this onto the page, we need to just do React DOM.render and then game, which is what we just created up there. And then we'll do document.get element by ID root. Okay, so that's where we're going to render it. Oops. Okay, if we save that, hopefully there's no big errors, but in order to get a development server up to check, we can just do npm start and it'll start up a development server for us. So I'm going to pause that while it starts up. It might take a little second and then come back. Okay, it's come back saying I've got a little error here on line 53, so let's go and have a look at that. Line 53, and what have I done? I've put the star after the slash, so it's not actually a comment. There we go. Okay, save that, and I'll just open up my PowerShell again, and it says compiling. So we don't need to restart it, it just each time you save, because it's a live development server, it'll try compiling that again. So give that a little second. Okay, another error. Your render method should have a return statement, so we've made some mistake up here. Line 6, 5. So yeah, it's in square, and this render, this is what we're wanting to return, so we just need to wrap that in return statement with curly brackets, and it finishes down here. You can see it's auto highlighting it for us. Just indent that, save it, and then once again it's trying to compile. And there we go, looks like it's done. So let's have a look. And that's the grid, so we're ready to start. Changing the code a bit, so when we click it adds next, this next player changes, and when someone wins it comes up with a win. So because this video's gone on quite long already, I'm going to save that for part 2 and possibly part 3, but please subscribe to see the next videos, and like if you enjoyed this. Let me know as well if you had any issues, need anything clarified. But thank you for watching, and hope to see you in part 2.